I'm going to need a pillow to sit down on to get as tall as he is.
All right, there we go. Now we're ready to go. Welcome to another episode of the Tower 26B Race Story Podcast. I'm Joe Minsky here with Coach Jerry Rodriguez. Coach, it is a pleasure and honor to be here in this holiday week. Right, we got Christmas 7 days away, Hanukkah, who knows how many days away, Kwanzaa, I don't know, a couple days away. We're spending this quality time together, and I'm honored. Thank you.
Well, you know, I have a request for a Christmas gift.
Yeah, swim faster.
No, I need a pillow to sit on because I'm not tall enough. I realized you're.
Well, you see, so you can see him. I can go up and down in this chair.
Well, I'm glad you went down because a moment ago you were about a foot taller than me.
I'm just hovering over you, but this should be a fun one. We should have a good, a nice, lively discussion here on this one, and a lot of good information, a lot of good education. I'm just coming back from New Zealand. I went over there for a whole 4 days, so it was a 14-hour flight over, 14-hour flight back. Did some live podcasts. I raced, got on a plane the next day, headed back, and now we're back in the thick of it with the two kids getting ready for Santa.
Yeah, well, I want to get into those details, but let's talk about, well, you're the guy that runs the show. What did we talk about the last episode?
What did we talk about last time? I don't know. Did we talk about alignment, technique? We talked about technique. We talked about alignment. We told athletes to send in their videos, which we got a few videos, which was pretty cool. So we got videos, sent those in, so we're going to break down a couple more videos, but last episode we did break down 3 or 4 videos from our athletes who sent them in, and I got some good feedback. Athletes learning from watching the videos that they did. So what did you hear anything on that episode?
I haven't heard anything on the episode, but I'm glad we got some videos in. And in fact, you guys, thank you for sending those in. And into the future, send the videos in separate files, meaning if you shoot 2 or 3 videos of yourself, send those 2 or 3 separately. You don't have to put them together. And then make sure that each one is approximately, 6 to 8 seconds long. You don't need to make any one of them longer than 10 seconds, but don't make all 3 collectively be 10 seconds. Said differently, each one 5 to 10 seconds long. And from the different views above and then underwater swimming into the camera.
And we're going to show some examples of that from the athletes who sent them in. Yes. We had Steve send one in and Sarah sent them in. So some interesting notes came along with those, so we'll read those when we get to it. But I did go to New Zealand. Let me tell you something, Jerry. I am fired up, not only as an athlete, but more so as a coach. Because when you go to a place like the World Championships, and it's in an epic scenic spot that's extremely remote, you know that you're only getting the passionate of the passionate in the sport. It's not like you could just drive to Vegas and show up, I qualified, I'm just going to go to Vegas and party. The athletes going to New Zealand, they have to make a commitment to get there. Most athletes traveled at least 13 hours to get to the island of New Zealand, which means they were all in on the World Championships, and it was an exciting experience.
Well, it showed up in the results. I mean, the depth of the field for the athletes, our athletes that I was tracking, Jim, I mean, if you were 2 or 3 minutes ahead or behind somebody, that could be 20 places.
Yeah, I know. I'm telling you, I think Peter Lutskotes from the Philippines was 30th place in the 40 to 44 age group. And if he would have been 2 minutes faster, he would have been top 15. He would have been 4 minutes faster, he would have been top 5. That's how close this racing was.
Ricardo, 55 to 59. Chris Manzello, 50 to 54.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was looking at, again, 2 or 3 minutes on either side, a lot of depth, a lot of placings. So you know what that tells me? And this is what you're really good at. Transitions matter, because your transitions were lightning fast. I think you were 4:27 on your first transition, on a $1:30-ish on your second one. So total, you were 6 minutes-ish in transitions, while many other athletes were about 10 minutes in transitions.
Yep.
That's 4 minutes net, right?
Oh, yeah.
In your favor.
And we were adding it up.
Alone, 15, 20 spots.
Yeah, and that's what, afterwards I was staying with Ricardo, and we added up the transition time. And if he would have been, as fast as I was or close to as fast as I was in transition, he would have moved up 10 spots.
So let's, what I thought would be super educational, Jim, is to go over your race.
Yep.
Because you didn't have the race that you wanted, the race that you expected. And I think there's some lessons, there's some messages in this.
Yep.
So why don't I think coaches could learn a lot, but athletes could gain a tremendous amount from your experience.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us how it was? Give us a lead up to what
Right. So going into the race, knowing it's going to be a quick turnaround, being that Christmas is 10 days out from race day, I'm not going to have a ton of time to spend there. The family wasn't going with me, right? So I had my wife and 2 kids here, 2-year-old and 4-year-old, staying home. So it wasn't going to be like I was going to go over there and then travel around New Zealand by myself. Hey, see you guys later. I know Christmas is 10 days, but I'm going to go on the South Island and trek for a week. That's not me. I'm not going to do that type of thing. So I was going to leave Tuesday at midnight, which means you get there Thursday morning at about 10 a.m., right? Because you missed the whole day. It's a 14-hour trip. They're 21 hours ahead of us.
And what day's the race for you?
The race is Sunday.
Okay.
Right.
So you're getting the Thursday event Sunday.
But I'm going to get into Auckland, and the flight from Auckland to Taupo is 45 minutes, but it's a tiny plane, and your bike doesn't get transported. They have to drive their bike. So I just decided, let me drive from flying to Auckland and drive myself with my bike and my luggage from Auckland to Taupo. It was about 4 hours. So I arrived in Auckland at 10 a.m., I got the car, knowing I was going to do a live podcast at the Precision Hydration booth at 3 p.m.,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
At 3 p.m. that day. So I flew all night, no sleep. Tried to sleep on the plane, didn't get any sleep. Landed at 10, picked up the car. 11 o'clock, I was out of there, drove to Auckland, got there by around 2:30. It took a little longer because there was a ton of construction. So I brought all my equipment, set up at the Precision Hydration tent in the expo, and myself, the New Zealand-based coach Rob Dallimore, and Andy Blow of Precision Hydration started our live podcast at the tent, 3 p.m. Obviously, when the lights go on, Jer, my personality comes on. But
And Andy Blue is?
Andy Blow is the CEO of Precision Hydration.
Yes.
He's an amazing resource.
Yes.
I mean, if you want some good information, we've obviously have him on this show, but if you want to go listen to the podcast where we were building the athletes up for that, preparing those athletes for that World Championships, myself and Rob Dallimore do that podcast called Conquer the Course, and Andy was on there and gave a ton of great info, whether you're racing that race or any race. It was all good stuff. So we did that podcast 3 to 4 p.m., and then I went home to where I was staying with Ricardo, which was about 20 minutes away, unpacked my stuff, ate something, fell asleep.
So it's now Thursday evening.
Thursday
you
evening.
left Tuesday night,
Right.
California time.
So
So it's not quite 48 hours because of the 22-hour difference, but
Right.
you've gone close to 28 hours with not much sleep.
Not
so
much
far.
sleep, not much food, on my feet on my feet, quote unquote, going from start to finish, getting on the plane. Go home, get some rest, get up the next morning, and I do another podcast from the Ironman stage, which was pretty cool because the Ironman staff introduced us onto the stage as this is the first podcast we've ever done live from an Ironman stage.
So wait a minute. Are you cheating on me?
Here's the deal, Jared. I'm getting back to this. I'm just giving a brief overview, but there's a lot of detail that I'm
So far, I've heard two other
Jared,
podcasts.
Jerry, believe me. No, this is the same podcast with Rob, but this time we're doing it from the stage with the full gas girl, Beck Burns. We're doing it with Nikki Bartlett, who's a pro woman triathlete,
Right,
and then
sure, I know the name.
the head bike mechanic, Ben Marshall, who leads all the bike fixing and prepares all the bikes for the athletes who have problems at the expo. So we have all these guys on there, and myself being me, let me just say I made myself the center of attention. At the end, Beck Burns from Full Gas said,
Anybody surprised?
well,
with
that was Beck Burns says, well, that was fun. We just heard Jim talk for an hour. But no, it was great. Everybody loved it. But let me
Well,
tell
so
you something.
far we're 15 minutes into this podcast. I've said like 30 seconds.
Well, you asked me, but I'm gonna make you feel good now. Like not that you don't always feel good, but I'm gonna make you feel real good right now. Is because when I was walking around this expo, and people were coming up to me taking selfies, they said, "Tell Jerry hi. I listened to everything you guys put out there from the moment you started putting out there in 2017, whenever we started this podcast.
Long time ago.
I'm signing autographs. They're saying, tell Jerry hi for me. We listen to everything you do. And this is not just U.S.-based athletes. We got Australia, New Zealand, European. Everywhere you can imagine, these athletes are coming up to us saying, hey, we listen to the Be Race Ready podcast diligently. We learned from it. We thank you for everything that you guys put out there. We know it's, you're not really gaining anything from it.
You're
But
welcome, guys. I just hope now that New Zealand climbs up because did we check to see where New Zealand was?
New
in the
Zealand's
rankings?
coming up. They're coming up.
Yeah, after
that's for
this,
sure.
I expect a few notches up on the listenership.
I don't know what's going on with the downloads, but I got so many shout outs and selfies and say hi to Jerry for us. So it was exciting. So I did the live podcast, finished up checking in and all that kind of stuff, went home, got a little run in, got moving, shut it down early that night. The next morning I woke up, it was the women's race the next day.
Yes.
So I went and did a little training with some of our athletes, Brian Massey, Ricardo, Chris Manzillo, and then I went back to where we were staying, but we had our athletes racing down at the women's race. So I put all my stuff at mine and Ricardo's house, and his family, amazing family. They cooked dinner for us every night. I was put up like a king on this trip. But then I went down the women's race, and I was out there throughout the entire day watching Cindy and Granich and all of our Tower 26 athletes race on course all day at the women's race, right? And I'm not making excuses for my performance. I'm just saying it was go, 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 go. When I got home from the women's race around 5:30, 6 p.m., then it was time to start thinking, hey, maybe I should get ready for my race tomorrow.
I think with all of that detail, we now had a 10-minute windup, okay?
Yeah.
You still left out something.
Yeah, so before I left, I was coughing pretty good. My nose was stuffed up like there was a clamp on my nose, right? Yeah. This is before I left. And I probably thought, I probably shouldn't go do this race. I'm got some type of bronchial thing going on. It's probably getting close to bronchitis with the amount of, junk that was coming out of my lungs. My nose I couldn't breathe out. And when you can't get oxygen out of this thing, now we're live on YouTube right now, but I'm showing this schnoz is not, it's nothing to play around with. This is like full on.
If
it were a gun, it'd be a bazooka. You can't get any air in or out of this thing. You're really compromising your air intake and exhale.
So let me ask you this. Now, after the fact, the race has gone by, and we're going to get into the details of the race in a moment. Now that you know what you know because you've done the event, knowing what you know, would you have gone to the event, or how would you have advised an athlete of yours that you're coaching, knowing the outcome that you had,
Right.
and we'll talk about what the outcome is, but would you have advised an athlete to do the event?
No, not to race the event.
Okay.
Myself, I'm a little different because I'm the coaching and I'm doing the podcast. I have all these other commitments that go on over there.
Right.
And for the good of Tower 26, I got to be over there, be the face of the organization. So me going over there and doing all the PR and meeting and greeting, shaking hands, kissing babies, that kind of stuff, that was other commitments that I had already dove into and told him I'd be there to do it. The race was kind of just an accoutrement, if you will, to the weekend. Not saying I didn't want to perform well. I knew I was fit. I knew I was strong. So I still had high hopes and said, you know what? I can put my illness on the back burner and still have a good race out there. I'm Superman. That's the way I am. But if you were an athlete of mine with the condition that I was in, knowing that how much your performance takes a hit when you have that type of infection or whatever was going on, that's not a place where you want to mess around with.
So the head cold, the coughing, the hacking, the stuffed up nose, and so on, if those were the symptoms, and the athlete made the trip all the way to New Zealand,
Right.
you would have suggested sit this one out.
Well, I would say, depends on the severity, right?
Right.
If the severity of it, if it's something that's extremely severe.
And you don't know the outcome, what the outcome's going to be. The fact that you raced about almost 90 minutes slower than your potential,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Which is, when you're as good as you are, when you're close to
Yeah.
a 4-hour but half Ironman athlete, what was your final time? I don't even know.
5:30.
Okay.
Yeah, 5:30.
So almost 90 minutes
You're right,
slower.
you're right on, yeah.
So an hour and a half out of 4 hours, you're 30% off. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
wildly crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
So would you, if you knew it, you wouldn't have done it for yourself?
Just and time aside, whatever time, it was the misery I was going through as I was racing. It was just, it's not like I was miserable about time. I could care less about what my time was, but from the moment I got on the bike, the swim was actually okay because it was cool. Kept me cool down. But as soon as I got on the bike and I started turning those cranks, I had absolutely no strength in my legs.
Right.
There was nothing behind each pedal stroke. If I didn't race with a power meter, I don't race half Ironmans with any data. I just race off a feel. But if I had been racing with a power meter, it was probably 40% of threshold, if that.
So you normally swim around 30 minutes-ish.
Yeah.
You swam 29, I believe. So you had a good
28
swim.
low, but you could say
28
29.
is
Yeah,
low.
28
I
low,
apologize.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh,
28
so
low,
you
yeah,
smoke Massey.
Yeah, I'm the
Okay.
coach. I'm always
so you
the
actually
tip
had
of the spear.
you had a great swim.
Yeah.
And then you normally ride around in the 2 teens, right?
Yeah, around 215 is pretty steady.
215.
Yeah.
You were 239-ish.
Right. Yep.
Okay. And you would normally run 115 to 119. Am I about right?
Perfect. Right in there, yep.
And what were you?
240
240.
ride, and I ran. I don't even know probably 215 run.
Right.
I mean, it was just a run walk the whole way.
So this was, by all accounts, a pretty miserable experience for you.
Miserable. And I'm saying if it were just okay, I'm slow today, and I'm having a tough time getting through it. It would probably win in 4:30, 4:45, but it was the misery that I was experiencing with the legs. Just there's nothing, no power, no pop in my muscles.
So why did you finish the race?
It's the World Championship. You have to set ego aside in something like this and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to hit this finish line. Now, if it were an Ironman and I had to go out there and be on course for 15 hours and really risk digging a deeper hole into that illness, maybe turning it into pneumonia or something, it might have been a different case. But knowing it was a half Ironman, 1.2 mile swim, 56 mile bike, all I have to do is get through 13 miles of the run. But also, I had coached athletes of all different ability levels, right? Me finishing in 5:30 is an hour and a half faster that people would die, not literally die, but they would love to have a time of 5:30. So I check my ego as a coach and I say, you know, I'll get to the finish line. Even if it means run, walk, I'm going to get there.
Here's what I wrote.
Go ahead.
I'm going to interrupt
Yeah.
you. I wrote, because this is what I thought while the race was going on, not
Yeah.
knowing what
Yeah.
you were going through. I knew you were ill going in, but when I was tracking you, and I'm thinking of, you know, what's going on here, and he's continuing to go with these, you're so far off your ability
Yeah.
level. Respect the course, respect the other athletes, respect the sport.
Yep.
And you did that
Yep.
all the way through. And in fact, I think there's a learning experience here because you've had, I believe, heat stroke in a prior event,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I have.
And once you get heat stroke, you're more susceptible to get it generally
Yeah.
easier the next time.
Yeah.
Because I've had heat stroke a number of times. I've been there, done that.
Oh God, I know we've had deep conversations about this. I remember Hawaii, buddy. We were in Hawaii just
Yes.
hanging out, and that affected you.
Yes. So I think you have to be, to our athletes out there, you have to be super careful, be mindful. At the end of the day, it's sport, and we have a responsibility to our families, to our loved ones, to make sure that we're very careful in what we're doing. And I think I'm going to suggest to you, this is doctor time
Yeah.
to get this checked. And I think we
Yeah.
talked about that because now you have a ceiling that's been lowered for your
Yeah.
your amplitude to allow for variance with heat stroke has
Yeah.
been severely reduced.
Yep.
So if this happens to anybody else, go get checked, find out.
Well, we kind of jumped to that, but yeah, in the past, I've had heat stroke 2018 in Ironman Chattanooga, and then I had Ironman Texas where I had another bout with it where I really struggled, and that's another factor that happened here. The air temperature was warm, and I just
What was the trigger for you?
It was the wetsuit. It was swimming in the water. The water temperature was warmer than we thought it was going to be. It's supposed to be high 50s, low 60s, but it was actually mid to high 60s. And I had a thick wetsuit on getting out of the water. In addition to the illness, my core temperature was up. And even though I had a fast transition, my heart rate was way high. And running through transition, I just knew my legs just had no pop in them. So the heat also had a major hit on that experience. So
Well, one, congratulations. Two, I'm super proud of you.
Yeah,
I mean, I really
thank you.
am.
Yeah,
I mean,
thanks.
it's to hang around and keep going with what you were going through is tremendous.
Yep. Thank you.
And there's something to learn for all of us there. What your experience. It's too bad it had to happen.
Yeah.
But as a coach now, you have you coach lots of athletes. Tower 26 coaches many athletes. Was there any point during the race while you weren't having this good performance, you were thinking, "Oh, this is not going to look good for my athletes," or "I'm embarrassed," or any negative thoughts that were taking place?
No, that's happened in the past years ago, but now, honestly, like I know my athletes know how strong I am. I train with them 3-4 times a week. They've seen me race Ironman Arizona in a pretty fast time a couple weeks ago, and honestly, my results to myself come on the back burner. I have no ego in the game. It's not, if I go out there and I have a bad day, sure, I'll cross the finish line and whatever happens. But what really matters to me is how my athletes do. As long as they're happy, as long as they're racing well, they're learning from their experience, they're educating themselves between races on how to better themselves, I'm not worried about my race at all.
So, did you ever think about your mom during the race?
Oh, I talk about my family the whole way, yeah.
Because the last thing I read before, dead serious, we haven't talked about this.
Yeah.
Last thing I read, before the race went off was I was on Facebook, and I looked at your post, and your mom commented on it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
go Jimmy,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
it
yeah,
was,
yeah.
and you wrote back, love you. And I thought about that.
Yeah.
And I wonder what Jim's mom's thinking, because she's tracking
Yeah.
you, I'm sure. She doesn't know times, I presume, to the exact amount, but she would know that, well, she's on the tracker probably.
Yeah.
And knowing he's not where he's at, and as a mom, parent, probably concerned.
Yeah. No. Well, no. She knows I'm fine. She knows I'll get through it. She's obviously always has a little worry, but just knowing that I'm going to cross the finish line, and she's not really too worried about that. Now, my wife, on the other hand, knows what I'm capable of to the second, and she was bantering back and forth with various athletes and friends, and they are saying, "What's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? Why isn't he going quick?" So she was pretty interested in what was happening. Luckily, we had some eyes on course. Cindy, Jim Crane, they were texting back and forth, telling everybody he's all right. He's just going mile to mile. So we have birds in the air that can pay attention. But yeah, Mom's just happy to see me cross the finish line and blow him some kisses.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Congratulations to our athletes. Congratulations to everyone who did that race. I thought it was an extremely fast event. Professional athletes, fantastic race also. And man, the tightness, the competitiveness of each and every age group was just tremendous.
Well, there's a really weird dynamic.
Congratulations to Jason Smith, one of our coaches, who I thought all along was top 10, and then at the very end, the tracker wasn't picking up 3 or 4 athletes. I think he ended up 11th or 12th.
Well, I'll tell you why. It's because the way it was staged, the race, the pros went off at 7 a.m.
Yes.
Our age group was the last age group, 45 to 49, went off at 9:20 a.m. So there's 2 hours and 20 minutes between the first wave and the second wave, and then it was a time trial rolling start, so athletes went every 12 seconds. So someone like Jason was in the first row of athletes. He went off right at 9:20. He was in my age group, but there was athletes that were 10 minutes
That
back,
could have been several minutes
who
back,
were just
yeah.
racing their race, and that's why it kept bumping up on the tracker like that.
Yeah, so those weren't picked up, but congratulations to him, to Chris Manzillo, to Ricardo. I mean, we had Peter. I mean, it was really, really terrific.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it just shows all the hard work, all the focus, all the dedication. It comes out to play, and I'm glad that our athletes had amazing days when it all counted. So that's what all that counts to me. So, but they do the work. They're consistent. They're focused, and they're dialed into the process.
So I want to give a shout out to Brian Massey. And Brian Massey is one of our athletes. And every Tuesday, guys, we have a 2 p.m. call with our athletes that Jim runs.
Jared, excuse me 1 second.
Yes.
You go off with Brian Massey. I'll be right back.
Oh, sure, of course.
About Brian Massey. I'll be right back.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm saying congratulations to Brian, because he had an outstanding swim. He was 28 minutes. It was his fastest swim ever. But the interesting thing about Brian, and I heard a little bit about this, I was telling you guys on our 2 p.m. call each week, because Brian was on that call and he was going over his race. Brian has spent the last, I think, 8-ish weeks using Vasa, which I just noticed as I looked into the camera. I was wearing a Vasa t-shirt and didn't even recognize what I put on this morning. And he hadn't been swimming very much, 1 or 2 times a week, and he attributed his success to the use, Jim, of Vasa. And I don't know the detail to how much he was using it. Do you know what his frequency was?
Yeah, he uses it 2-3 times a week. Very focused training. He wasn't just getting on there and doing it for 30 minutes. He actually had sets. He does it like it's a swim workout.
So 2 weeks ago, I called up Rob, the owner, and asked Rob if he would be interested in being a sponsor of our show.
Yep.
So I don't know if Rob's going to take us up on the offer, but even if he doesn't, here's a freebie for Vasa. Get one.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a tool that works really well. I used them in my days back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And when they first launched. And it's a tremendous tool, David. Why? I mean, we have a number of our athletes that use them, and it's highly beneficial.
Yeah, and Coach Jack is a big advocate of it, our swim surgeon, Coach Jack, who's on the show every so often. But, I mean, that muscular resiliency, the muscular strength that the Vasa promotes, it's a dynamic you add to your swim, whereas maybe you're stuck in a rut for session after session, month after month, and you just can't seem to get out of it. A lot of times adding that muscular resiliency, muscular strength to your program is going to bring you over that hump. I had that issue a couple of years back, and I really worked the strength workout on the Vasa, and I went from 31-minute swimmer, and I wasn't changing my yardage I was doing in the pool. I was still doing the same yardage. I went from a 31-minute swimmer to a 29-minute half Ironman swimmer, just by adding that muscular resiliency, muscular strength.
Well, congrats again. I didn't realize you went 28. That's a good. That's
28-14. Yeah, felt good. Felt good.
Well,
But-
Massey, I think, was 28:50, 50 something, 54, whatever it was. It was an outstanding swim for him, and he gave the
Yeah.
success, the recognition to using the Vasa machine. So I'm saying this because I'm also trying to encourage. I want Vasa as a sponsor in our show because I want to be able to encourage and for you guys to see over and over the handful of products that we use that I really believe in. Vasa is one of them, amongst others.
Yeah,
So-
well, now we're doing these video podcasts. We can always put them in the background. If we want a new bike sponsor, we put it over here. You know, we want to form goggles, we put it here. We can, come on, Jared, just let's start bringing it in.
In fact, using these form goggles, 2 weeks ago I left home to go swim, and I left my goggles at home because you have to charge them
Left your
every
form, yeah.
6 or 8 hours. I was 5, 6, 7 minutes into my drive. I turned around, drove back. Now I have a regular pair of goggles in my bag,
Yeah.
but I've gotten so used to it. Do you know I'm close to 1,000,000 yards on this now?
Jeez.
Right?
Yeah.
I turned around, drove back home, got my
Yeah, it doesn't count.
goggle. 'Cause
Doesn't count.
I'm addicted to it now.
Yeah, if it's not on form, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
So we're getting to our alignment phase of training,
Yes.
right? So we're going to go over some videos. We're going to talk about the alignment of the videos that Sarah and Steve sent in. But what in this phase of training, we spoke about a little bit last episode, but what can we touch on here to educate these guys as to what they should be focusing on now the next few weeks in the alignment phase?
Well, yeah. Well, let's talk about that and talk about what I'm seeing in workouts, which I'm sure you are too, which are the mistakes that are being made,
Yeah.
and the way we go through our alignment teaching. And the reason, you guys, we spend a lot of emphasis on alignment, it's because the way we structure, Tower 26 structures our teaching methodology for triathlon swimming, we break it into 3 categories. Tautness, that's the platform, it's the foundation, that's more body structure, body tone. Then alignment, and then propulsion. Alignment, although it's rather simple to understand, and it seems easy, it's where the most mistakes occur.
Yeah.
I would guesstimate, 80%-ish of the swimming mistakes occur on their alignment. So in this category that we're in right now, that we're teaching, that we'll spend 3 or 4 weeks on, right?
Yeah.
We break it into 3 subsets on their alignment. Head position, rotation, and that's rotation of shoulders and hips, how much rotation, head position, how much we should turn our head, and what's the proper breathing mechanics, right? So that's head, rotation means shoulders and hips, and then finally hand channels
Yeah.
means where do we enter? Where does the hand enter? In front of the shoulder, center, outside, across? What's the proper entry? And then once it's beneath the surface, what does it do?
Yep.
What's the geography that it should travel in? So let's go over the minutia for a moment, right?
Yep.
Head position. What's the mantra?
No tucking, tilting, or lifting the head.
That's right. No lift.
Tuck, tilt, or lift.
Yep.
Do it with me, Jared.
No.
Tuck, tilt. You're supposed to be doing it with me.
Well,
tuck,
we do it different.
tilt,
We do it differently.
lift.
We go no lifting, no tilting, no tucking.
lifting, tilting, tucking.
No lifting, no tilting, no
Head is
tucking.
on a boom. It's like there's a pole running right up the back of your neck.
Yes. So when we get ready to breathe, or at any other time, there is no head lift. In fact, the only time there's head lifting is when you're racing or doing sighting in the pool. But when we're out of that phase, in the recovery phase that we're in, the technical phase, when we're turning our heads to breathe to the side, whichever side you breathe on, there is no lifting of the head position. Water level sits right here, center top of the head. Not forehead, but center top, and it's just a turn to breathe. There is no lifting. Tilting off the spine line, that is the worst thing that we can do because that creates loads of errors.
Yep.
So lifting creates errors, tilting creates a ton of errors, and then tucking creates minor errors, but we don't want tucking either. So no lifting, no tilting, no tucking. That's the head position. And then with the breathing, what do we do? How do we breathe? Well, one of the key fundamentals of breathing is not to hold your breath. You inhale, turn to the side, inhale, head back down, head stationary. The moment it gets back down, keep it fixed, static, begin blowing your air out, blowing the bubbles out through your mouth, not through the nose.
Right.
We can blow through the nose in conjunction with, but we want to blow through the mouth. So inhale through the mouth, turn back to the neutral head position, start blowing the bubbles out, and then at conclusion or right as you're finishing, we start the next turn. Where mistakes occur is when we capture the breath, head back down, and we hold the breath for even just a half a second. We hold it, and what happens is we start blowing out. So we've held it a tad too long, we're blowing out, and then we're ready to turn again to the side. We're still blowing out. When we get to the side to breathe, we're still blowing out. So we take a little bit longer, because you're sitting out there now, I'm blowing out, and then you've got to inhale. So we're blowing out and inhaling. Exhaling and inhaling takes longer. It's called lingering. So the athlete lingers to the side a bit longer, and the moment you linger, stuff happens. And anytime stuff happens, Jim, it's not good stuff.
Yep. I think a lot of times athletes think they need more breath than they need. So they're taking this big gulp of breath as they turn their head, and then they can't get it all out when their head's in the air, in the water. So they have to, when they turn back, there's still air in the lungs. You should be breathing pretty much the same way we're breathing right now.
Correct, depending on effort, right? But the point is, it's rhythmic. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So make sure as you turn, start capturing, head goes back down, immediately start exhaling. So that's how we blow out, or when I should say we inhale and exhale. Now let's talk about how. If you're a right-sided breather, okay, the moment we start engaging the propulsive phase of the right hand, if you're a right-sided breather and we start engaging the propulsive phase, as we're engaging propulsion, we're starting to turn. The body is rotating on to its left side. Remember, you're breathing to the right. It's rotating. And as it's rotating, I'm going to do a little demonstration here, make sure I'm still in camera view.
You're there you are.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
As we're generating propulsion and the body's starting to rotate, the head's attached to it. And it's turning, and it's turning, and it's turning, and it's turning. And by the time the hand is finished, the head should be back here, okay? And the mouth is just clearing the water. And as we're coming over, we've inhaled. So when the hand is exited, just about at the exit, we've captured the breath, maybe for the first portion of the hand.
Come this way.
Come over more. Portion of the hand. And then as the arm's coming over into the recovery, this is called the recovery of the arm, as it's coming back to the front, the head is starting to go back down, go back down, go back down, go back down. So by the time the hand enters the water, head's down. Here's what happens. Many folks start pulling, arm comes out, head's not turned yet, and as the arm's recovering in the air, then they turn the head sits out here, and we're late. The breath is late. So we're hanging out now, head staying too long, and the body starts sinking. And once the body starts sinking, the arm that's out front starts pressing down to give lift. So that's where we get the pressing from, and we don't want any pressing. So pressing comes from a sinking body, which usually is triggered by improper timing of the breath. So pull, exit at the back, at the hand, faces out, you're capturing the first air right here, arm starts coming over, head's going back down, head's going back down, head's going back down. Make sense?
Totally.
All right.
Totally, and that's what I was trying to harp on this morning with these athletes and that breath. So much alignment problem comes with that breathing out of sync, like you just said. They're breathing early, they're breathing late, they're not breathing in sync, causing them to sink, causing that press down to happen, and then the arm comes out of alignment, the hips come out of alignment, the head pops up. All these things go south because that breathing is out of sync.
Yep, exactly.
And you're going to see it in the video that we're going to show, I believe, of Steve. I didn't see Sarah's pay attention to the head in that one yet. You're going to break that down. But you'll see Steve's head in that one, and that'll show what a lot of you athletes do.
He has a little bit of head lifting, yeah. So that's on the breathing segment. So no lifting, no tilting, no tucking, and then we got to make sure that the timing of the breath, we do it correctly so we don't linger out to the side. Pretty simple.
Right.
So in the second part of when we're teaching this, we go through a fair amount of kicking on our sides where one arm is out front and the lead arm, let's just keep everything since we have a majority of folks breathe to their right, generally, have more right-sided breathers than left, so I'll keep it the example for right-sided breathers. When you're on your left side, if you're a right-sided breather, you're turned onto your left side. Your left arm is out front, and it's out front directly in front of your shoulder. So, shoulder here, hand is directly in front of it. And we're turned about 45 degrees, hips and shoulder, and cheek is resting against your shoulder. So we're in this position. The common error that's made is the arm is over too much.
Cross the center line.
Cross the center line. The hand needs to be directly in front of the shoulder. Not inside of it, not outside, but directly in front, palm flat, hand 2 or 3 inches beneath the surface, never at the surface. Cheek resting against your shoulder. And then you would and we start these exercises or these drills with fins and a snorkel. And we get the athletes just familiar with being on your side and being in that position, what it feels like. And when you're on your side also, you gotta make sure your hip and the top of your top ankle, is at the surface.
Yep.
This is how we stay connected, those 3 touch points, right? So we have a progression as to how we go through these drills. And then we would go on one side, then we'd eventually go to the other side. We start on the comfort side first. If you're a right-sided breather, we'd have you kicking on your left side, say for a 100 as an example. Then we'd have you kick on your right side, your less dominant side, right? Still, fins and snorkel. Then we'll remove the snorkel. And once you remove the snorkel, you have to then breathe, because then you've got to chin up, chin down. And the common error that we get is head lift and then head tilt. No lifting, no tilting. So we go from fins and snorkel to fins only. It's a progression. We spend 2 or 3 or 4 sessions doing that alone. Of course, we're swimming in between, doing some other things, but the drills are those drills. And then we'll eventually remove the
gear.
We remove the gear. We remove the fins,
right.
And then we remove the snorkel. What we don't want to do, you guys, and Jim, you experienced this with us. There was one morning we were at a pool swimming in Santa Monica. I was coaching the group. Jim was swimming in it. I happened to be swimming that session also. There were not too many of us, maybe 6 or 8 of us, 10 of us at that session. And a coach had a beginning athlete, a new triathlete.
A different coach had a new athlete swimming, right? Yep.
A different coach, what I would call a very inexperienced coach, had a beginning athlete swimming doing this drill. Number one, this is quite an advanced drill that requires a lot of practice and a fairly high skill set. In fact, even elite swimmers, NCAA athletes, Olympic athletes, will start this drill with their fins and a snorkel, and then they'll progress to no equipment, like you were saying. We must start with the equipment, the snorkel and the fins. This poor gentleman, who I would put at maybe a 2.5 minute per 100 swimmer, so very beginning type athlete. No fins, no snorkel. The poor guy was drowning, and I am not.
And Jim, he's never been to the pool since.
Jim exaggerates. I don't. The poor guy was drowning. The good news for this gentleman is the pool was 3.5 feet deep the entire way, so he could have stood up 8 or 9 times in a 25-yard pool. This drill is way too advanced. Coaches should not be giving this drill to absolute beginners without equipment, the use of fins and snorkel to start off. And then we progress there, maybe 2 or 3 sessions with all the equipment, and then 2 or 3 sessions with some of the equipment, then 2 or 3, you get the idea.
Yeah, well,
so it's a progression.
You can't look at the fins and snorkel as a crutch. It's something to help you feel the way you should be feeling it with the front end without having to worry about staying up in the back end. Then as you get that feel, you can progress to a little harder and harder and harder. In strength training, we do the most stable exercise first, and as we advance, we add in more and more instability, which is you taking that gear off. So we're going to start extremely stable with the gear, and then as you advance and you get a feel for it, then you can start to strip the gear away.
Yep, you got it. So the third segment, so we talked about breathing, we talked about being on your side, the drills that we do, and then finally the third segment under our alignment would be hand channels. Where do you place your hand, just the hand, and then what do you do with it beneath the surface of the water? So simply stated, another visual for you guys, the hand, when we enter the water, gets placed anywhere between the center line of your body, there's your center line right up here, and your shoulder. So here's a territory right here. Left and right shoulder is the example I'm using. The hand could be placed anywhere here. And in fact, it's better if it's placed closer to the shoulder line. We had an imaginary line going right off the front here. here's our center of our body line, here's our shoulder line. Ideal to be placed here. The more we get towards the center, stuff can happen. And if we cross over, a lot of bad stuff happens. We cross, hips go out. So we want to get the right hand to be placed in front of the right shoulder, left hand in front of the left shoulder. And then once we're swimming beneath the surface of the water, the hand, just the fingertip to the wrist, stays within the channel of the center on the right shoulder line in this example. The hand, it can travel anywhere in here. And what I'm showing, so those of us just listening on audio only and not seeing this, anywhere between your center line on your right shoulder line and an imaginary right shoulder line that's coming down your body off your shoulder, straight parallel to your center line, the hand can travel anywhere within that territory, that geography. But it can't cross over and it can't go outside. And if it does, what happens, Jim? Stuff happens.
Stuff. But I see so many of our athletes, this morning included, it comes outside of that shoulder path because the timing of the breath is off. They're breathing too late. Their head's returning late. They're already started pressing down on the water because of it, and it causes that hand to come into that outside path, and they can't get it under the body. And it all comes back to that breath and the alignment, the misalignment that's causing. So if you have a problem keeping the hand under the body, like Coach Jerry just said, where's your head turning? Where are you breathing? Are you breathing early? Are you breathing late? And a lot of times that can be fixed by fixing the breath.
So you talked about one of the very common errors that occur, and another one would be that lead hand when we're doing that kicking on your side, or even if we're swimming, but the point is the lead hand that's sitting out front, when we've taken the snorkel off and we turn to breathe, the moment somebody is swimming, if you're swimming with the right arm only, because so we progressed, by the way, from kicking on your side to eventually doing drills where you're just swimming with one arm only. So the left arm would be static out front, we'd be swimming with the right arm only, but once the athlete starts to swim with the right arm only, what happens as they turn to breathe, the lead hand, which is the one that's static out front, the left hand that's in front of the left shoulder, that hand then crosses over all the way to the right side. And that we don't want to have happen. So it's helpful if you can have a partner, a significant other, a like-minded triathlete friend, video you doing these drills. So you can actually make sure you're doing them correctly.
And it takes presence. We said that we harped on this last episode. Every single stroke, you have to be present and focus on the process. If you start to let your mind wander, not think about all the things Coach Jerry's talking about here, stuff starts to go downhill, stuff starts to happen. You go back to old habits. You stop ingraining those new habits into your muscle memory, and you swim the way you've been swimming. If you're totally mindful and engaged in the process, engaged to the detail of the stroke with what Coach Jerry is laying out here, that's how you make the gains. You get to where you want to be. So be focused, be present. As soon as your mind starts to wander, bring it back to that technique, bring it back to those focus points, and you can ingrain that muscle memory into every single stroke. But it takes patience, it takes time, and it takes that focus.
And it's why we spend several weeks working on each phase, 3 or 4 weeks on each phase of tautness, several weeks on alignment, several weeks on within propulsion. And in this alignment area, again, we go through it very carefully and methodically because of the errors that occur. We talked about rotation as the second thing we work on. The reason we devote a fair amount of time to rotation is many people over-rotate. They spend too much time, and in fact, there was a methodology years ago by many coaches actually that had heavy emphasis on rotation. Beginning swimmers, or let me define athletes that do not have a minimum 4 years of high school swimming experience where they raced in their high school team and or collegiate swimming, you have not earned the right to rotate a lot when you swim. In other words, you will never need to be rotating anywhere up to 90 degrees. That's a no-no. Just never do that. And many years ago, there was a methodology of teaching that came out where it had athletes rotating quite a bit. Do not do that. Over-rotation, and that is over-rotation, that's the causation of many symptoms that occur. And one of the symptoms is a sinking, the hand presses down because we start sinking. Another one is legs splay out. There are a number of things that happens with over-rotation. And more importantly, over-rotation, Jim, or rotating too much, slows down cadence rates because we have to turn the body in a dense medium. It's not the atmosphere. It's water. It's several hundred times denser. So the time it takes to turn all the way to 90 degrees and then all the way back to the other side at the speed of non-competitive swimmers takes a long time. It shuts down cadence. And the moment you shut cadence down, think about it. If you shut your cadence down in running, what happens?
Go slower.
Run slower. You shut your cadence down in cycling, what happens?
Slower. Yep.
So it's the same in swimming. So we do not want to over-rotate. Never towards 90 degrees. Never. That's a circle with a slash through it.
Yep. That's right. Okay, well, let's see some examples. We got some video examples from swimmers who sent them in after the last episode. Remember, send your video examples. You guys send them to contact at tower26.com. They send them to Jerry at tower26.com, Jim at tower26.com. Send them, get them to us, and we will get them on the air. Our first video is from Steve. Steve, hey, first time contacting, long time listener from Yorkshire in the UK. It'd be great if you could assess my swim and provide some feedback. I apologize for the low quality. I'm a British tri coach, but also an adult onset swimmer. So although I know what I need to be doing, I find it difficult to deliver. Things have improved over the past few years. My 100-meter pace is around 140 to 145, remember, per 100 meter.
It's good. That's a
Thanks for any
130,
feedback.
135, yeah.
Thanks for any feedback, and happy holidays, Steve. So we're going to see Steve. Do you have him set up on the...
I have him set up so you can switch to that screen. And I want to say thank you to Steve for sending this in. And Steve, the reason I'm appreciative of you sending your videos in particular, you're a coach. And some coaches might think, I don't want to do this. This might be embarrassing. I don't want to show my athletes to see my technical flaws. I actually applaud Steve for doing this because
really
his athletes will learn a lot from this.
Yep.
And Steve will hopefully benefit a bit. We'll do a minor evaluation here. Remember, we're going to take Steve's 2 or 3 videos that he sent in, and we will review these under 3 categories: tautness, alignment, and propulsion, and give a quick score to each. Now, we obviously do this in much more detail in a video analysis, where we'd be spending a couple hours with the athlete generally, but we'll do a quick little 5-minute review. So here's Steve. This was a lower quality video, Steve, so it was hard for us to really, it was shot from too far away. So I tried to take a very small version of it. So those of you sending in video shot from underwater, start from about halfway down the pool, maybe, or closer, and then swim all the way toward the camera, all the way into the wall, whereas Steve opened up the footage from the far wall and then stopped the footage about halfway.
And that could have been me converting it. I don't know. Maybe it was just the way I converted it. But yeah, that's a good laid out there. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, so let's
thinking about it,
make sure we swim directly into the camera. So from this angle here, and the clarity of the water, it's very difficult for us to assess much. I'm doing this in slow motion for you guys to see right now. The first thing that I can tell, and this is not because of the lack of clarity, it's very difficult to totally assess here. So I'm just going to do a quick little freeze frame.
So Jerry's scrubbing through the video.
Yeah.
He is going to freeze on Steve, and I know what he's going to say here. Go for it, Jerry.
So, well, there are a couple of things here. Here's Steve's head at the surface right there, and then here is hips down here. So he's angled downward. So his body is angled downward, which means his hips are beneath the surface. So that's the first thing that comes up that's easy to tell. And again, I apologize that the quality of the water is a little...
He sent in 2 other videos, and
he did send
those are much better quality.
Those.
So
that's what we can tell mainly from this video, which is not the greatest quality, but his others are very good. So let's go to the next one. Let's back up and go to this one first. This was a good one that Steve sent in. Let's just do this.
Overhead view of Steve swimming.
Yep, overhead view.
We'll get a good one of it here. So he's swimming across the pool, 25-meter pool.
Yep.
What do you see, Jer?
So let's go slow-mo now. And here's the, can anyone pick this up? Here's the first thing. Head lift, head lift, head lift, head lift, head lift, head lift, and then he's going to get ready to turn.
So he almost looks like he's putting a sight into his stroke with his head coming up as much as it does.
And here comes it on the other side. He didn't breathe. He's now going to breathe to his left, I believe. Lift, head lift, head lift, head lift, and then turning. So there's a lifting of the head and then turning. And remember the mantra, no lifting, no tilting, no tucking. And then the next thing that I picked up, Jim, and we'll see if we capture. And by the way, let's point out some good things that Steve's doing here.
Yeah, I was about to say, he's got some good stuff going on there.
This is beautiful.
Great
nice
line.
Straight line from fingertip all the way back. This is beautiful.
Yeah, his hand is coming out straight out from his shoulder. There's no cross over the center line. It's not coming out too wide, so that's really good there on Steve's part.
Perfect left arm. And then here comes the right one, and we go a little crossways. Just a little. It's not too bad, but it does create a slight arc.
So he's crossing over the center line with his right arm as he comes into the water.
Yes. And remember, where is the center line? And I'll clear this up for a second.
So if you guys are listening to this on audio version, you can go to our Tower 26 YouTube channel. The replay will be on there, and you can scrub forward to Steve's video and watch what we're talking about.
Yeah, so he's getting a slight arc of the body here. It's not much, but it's slight, and that's coming about simply because of his the hand being entered too much inside. The right hand needs to be directly in front. It's better if it's directly entered in front of the right shoulder.
Right.
All right, so let's clear that up. But otherwise, I see this as being pretty decent. This is quite decent. All right, so that's good. Let's quickly go now to beneath the surface, and I think this is where...
The third video he sent in, beneath the surface.
So short. So remember, we can run these videos for 6 or 7 seconds. Steve was really good about doing them pretty crisp. So what we have here, and you can pick up from right here, guys, you'll be able to see. I want you to keep an eye on Steve's head.
So the circle is on his head. Coach Jerry put a circle on Steve's head.
On what's happening right there.
See it lifting up out of the water. It's almost like he's sighting underwater.
Yep. So the head lifts, and that's what we picked up in the other footage, right? And then what happens when Steve lifts his head?
His hips are about a foot under the water now.
His hips and his feet have sunk also. So Steve now has a beautiful arc right here. Arc meaning his head is at the surface, high. He's in a convexed position. Hips have sunk, and then his heels are a little above his hips, so he's created this convexed view. So that's the quick on Steve there.
And then you notice when he brings his head back in the water, he overcompensates and he tucks the head. Actually, when he comes back to the water with his head, he tucks that chin way deep in there.
I didn't pick up that. Well done.
Go back.
Well picked up.
Overcompensates by bringing the head way back down.
Yeah. So Steve has a fair amount of head movement. Remember, keep the head stationary. Turn to the side, put it back, and keep it neutral. Do not move it. Do not lift it. Do not tilt it. Do not tuck it. So let's give Steve scores. On tautness, which was hard to tell from if we had a clearer video, I'm going to score him at 80. On alignment, his alignment's pretty decent other than that right arm on that head. I'm also going to give him close to an 80, a 75. What we couldn't pick up here, and let's back up.
Here we go, back on the video. There we go.
We're going back. And Steve has a soft hand. Look at his left hand.
Yeah, elbows dropping.
Yep. Elbows dropping, and the wrist itself right there, and I'll circle that up for you guys. The wrist is getting what I call loose and floppy a bit, right in there, loose and floppy, loses tension, and even the back of the stroke, there's tension lost. So he's going to gain a fair amount by using Avasa, doing stretch cords as an example, getting more power from his stroke. So I would rate his propulsion. Steve's actually a pretty good swimmer. At the end of the day, he does fairly well. I would rate his propulsiveness the lowest. I'd give him a 65 to a 70, but it's still pretty good. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's got improvements to be made there. A little bit of improvements, obviously, in the head position, and then the crossover at the arm.
I think that's a fair score for Steve. Thanks for sending that in, Steve. Let's go over to Sarah. Sarah, let's talk about Sarah real quick. Sarah's been listening to the podcast for a few years now. She really enjoys it. Most recent podcast, we asked for these videos, but we didn't mention it had to be a Tower 26 member. So I'm hoping you can do a brief analysis of my swim technique on the podcast, even though I'm not a member. Sarah, we really appreciate this. Is any listener can send these in, right, Chair?
Yeah, in fact, we get enough of our Tower 26 members sending us videos. I'm just joking. Tower 26 members send us videos also, but outside of Tower 26, please send your videos in. We want to help you out. So let's take real time. Here's Sarah. And the interesting thing, Jim, the first thing I noticed is Sarah is, this is a head-on view, Sarah is breathing bilaterally, okay? And maybe this is how Sarah swims in a race. Remember, when you're sending your footage in, Send it exactly the speed you'd swim for a half Ironman or an Olympic distance, whatever distance you typically do. Swim at the speed you put out in the performance you put into it on event day, and then also the exact same breathing pattern. I would not recommend breathing every third stroke on event day. So you want to train breathing every second stroke. This does not mean you just breathe on your favorite side. You can swim one length breathing on your right side, and then one length breathing on your left side for balance and teaching the skill of both sides. But the reason that we don't want to breathe every third stroke, especially if you don't have a high cadence, is the lower the cadence, the slower your stroke rate, right? Slower your stroke rate, the longer it takes you to get to a breath. Example, let's just do simple math. Pretty decent swimmers swim at 80 strokes a minute. 80 strokes a minute breathing every 2 strokes means you get 40 breaths in a minute.
Yep.
An okay swimmer, just moderate to okay, swims at 60 strokes a minute. If they swim at 60 strokes a minute and they breathe every 3 strokes, they've only gotten 20 breaths in a minute. Did I do the math right?
You got it.
20 breaths in a minute. They are now 50% less oxygen uptake than the athletes that's at 80 and breathing every 2
Like
strokes.
they're holding their breath
It's
constantly.
a whole new thing.
Yep.
So Sarah, number 1, learn breathe every 2 strokes. So here we go with Sarah. Let's do slow motion. Now, Jim, what's really nice here is Sarah does a good setup,
Yeah,
and it
she's
looks
got a
like
great
it. She's got a nice bend there at the elbow.
Great.
But I can immediately tell, here are the years of experience coming in, that elbow is going to drop right away because it's not quite set properly, and it's going to collapse and come into her side.
Oh, there you
See
go.
it right there?
Yep.
Yep, there it is.
So all that water Sarah's grabbing at the front of the stroke, she's losing as she comes through the water
Yep.
because that elbow's getting lazy as she comes through the stroke.
Yep, so let's look at the right hand.
Nice setup. Hand is in the perfect position under the shoulder, coming through, and then kind of just lets up halfway through the stroke. Am I right, Jer?
Yep, you nailed it. And it's just she loses a hold of the water right there, and the hand gets totally sort of soggy and floppy in the back. So off of this, I'm going to give her a propulsion score is likely going to be the least of the 3 scores at probably 60, with room for lots of propulsive improvement, meaning holding on to the water better. And in the next 2 or 3 podcasts, Jim, we will go through propulsion. We did tautness 2 podcasts ago. We're in alignment now. We will go into propulsion, so Sarah will get some more detail on how to actually fix this problem, but there is a propulsion problem. Pretty decent on the head, right? Head position.
That's good, yeah.
Yep. When she turns to breathe, a little bit of lift, but generally
she
pretty
has
deep.
the Form goggles on right now, and Form has that
you're
little
right.
game that you play where
Yes.
you keep the ball in between. I wonder if she plays that game with that little ball to keep them between the upper and the lower limit because her head position looks great.
It does look good.
Not saying that it couldn't have been previous, but I'm wondering if the Form goggles had anything to do with that.
Yeah.
I like the alignment of the arms. The hands stay under the shoulder. Maybe the left arm could come a little bit more under the shoulder, but the right arm looks really nice.
It is good.
Yeah.
Wish we had an overhead view. All right, let's see. This other video that Sarah sent in was a little difficult because there was a lot of glare in it, so it was hard to tell. So we'll do a quick real-time view of it.
Yep, this is above the water coming at the camera, so
Yep.
we're seeing her head. Looks pretty stable.
Yep, and there's
Yeah,
every
looks
third
nice.
stroke breathing again.
Yep.
And let's look at alignment, which is what we would view from the front. Pretty decent. Right hand in front of the right shoulder. Left hand in front of the left shoulder. Turn to breathe. The timing looks pretty good. Look at that, capturing the breath. The head's turned to the side, slightly lifted, but the face is out as the arm is exiting, what we talked about earlier. So this is beautiful head timing. As the arm's coming around, look at that, the head's going down. See? Arm's coming around, head's going down. It's well done.
Yep. But if you notice, I mean, we got this video, and she's probably starts swimming from the flags is where it starts.
Yes.
The flags to the wall. And in that time, Sarah takes about 10 strokes from the flags to the wall, if you count the strokes. So what you said about the propulsion, you're going to get the scores, but this is what I'm getting. This swim coach is seeing. The tautness looks great. The alignment looks great. The propulsion was what's really lacking in this stroke. She's going not very far with each stroke. Is this what you see, Jer?
You've nailed it.
Nailed it, baby.
So we would give the propulsion at 60, 65. We need a little more footage to get good take on tautness, but I'm going to give her a 75. On our alignment, I'm going to give her 80.
80. Okay, so this is another athlete, and
And I'm going to put Sarah. Did she give her speed? I'm going to say she's 2 minutes per
I didn't get the
100.
speed. Yeah, I didn't get the speed, but another athlete where the stretch cords, the Vasa, a little muscular engagement, muscular resiliency, a little more strength work in the swimming muscles are really going to go a long way to help hold on to that water as you execute the stroke. So thank you for sending those in, guys. Contact at tower26.com. Jerry, thanks for scoring those. I think you gave fair results. We won't get any hate mail from these athletes because, we gave them good stuff.
Well, our job is to, but by the way, let me just set the stage quickly on this. I'm not the, and we might get some hate mail for this comment here.
Right.
I'm not the give a medal to everybody that participates guy, okay? Maybe it's because I'm too old, but not because you show up, you get a medal.
Well, all those medals over here that I got, those are all first place medals. That's not just participation.
So you get good scores if you deserve good scores, and if it's not so good, I'm going to be pretty fair with you and say, hey, here's what you got to work on. So
I love it. Okay, well, that's good stuff. Remember, contact at tower26.com, Jerry at tower26.com, Jim at tower26.com. Send it anywhere. Send your questions, send your comments, send your hate mail. Send your hate mail to Jerry. But everything else, send to any of us. We'll all get it, and we'll all
if
get
it's
on the
hate mail, it's Jerry with a J. If you want your video analyzed, it's Jerry with a G.
GERRY at tower26.com. All right, we're going to get to the workout of the episode. We were running long on this one.
Yeah,
Coaching.tower26.com. We'll go to that, and we're actually going to show it. This is new technology we have on Tower 26 Be Race Ready podcast. We will show the workout of the episode, coaching.tower26.com. Jared, what do we got for today's workout?
Well, what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to run through this quickly because we're short on time, and we could spend more time in the next one. But let's just show, once you get these workouts, guys, once you subscribe to our plan, a workout comes with definition and outlining, what's the workout's about. And then the blue line up top is the audio file where I talk about an overlay of the workout and what the focus is. And this particular one is six minutes long, that audio. And then we get into the specifics of the workout. Here was some side kicking, as you can tell right here. And we define how to do that. We lay out 6 steps here of what needs to be done. And then we have Greg. We used Greg as a demonstration. By the way, the reason I used Greg was because Greg was a non-swimmer. He didn't have a swim background. Former football player. Played in high school and college. And so we got Greg to demonstrate in these videos what to do and how to do what's the proper method of kicking on your side. So we have 3 demonstrations. And then we go into the second part of the workout, or the second part of somewhat of a main set, where we worked on alignment to do with hand channels that we were talking about earlier, right? Here we are at hand channels. And with those hand channels, we were doing some right arm swimming and some left arm swimming. And again, with fins, we explain here, right arm swimming, what that's supposed to look like. So here are 10 points on what to do, so it's laid out for you. And then we have a video on alignment. And here's left arm. And then we have a couple other videos with the snorkel on, and then an above shot view of alignment. In fact, let's just play this one, because Jim, this is a very, very short video.
And this is Coach Jerry from above swimming in an endless pool. That's what we are showing right now on the coaching.tower26.com example video.
Yeah, and I don't suggest swimming in an endless pool because it's turbulent, but
this is just to show the alignment and
right.
the hand channels on this one. Fixed breath, show the timing of the breath. So you see all the good stuff in the fixed atmosphere of the endless pool. That's why we used it for this video.
Head position static, so you get the idea. So the workout lays out in detail all of these elements that we'd like you to accomplish. In fact, here's the last video that we had with doing some pulling, and we demonstrated staying within this very, very tight funnel, 2 yellow lines at the front, 2 yellow lines at the back for the feet, and a buoy on an ankle strap, and I think in this case I wasn't wearing a snorkel. But the workout has all the details to it, right?
Right.
So let's go. We'll
depth.
Open this workout up.
We'll open it up. Yep.
And then let's go into more detail the next time as to what the workout is.
Exactly. So
someone's calling you, buddy.
Tower 26 Tom. I'm a very popular guy. I'm surprised more people didn't call me during this one. But good stuff. Coaching.tower26.com. Go check out the workout. We'll open up this one, and you'll learn. Obviously, we have all these different ways to be educated, right? We're watching, teaching ourselves, hearing it. You have all these 5 different ways that you're educated, and our subscription plan covers all 5 ways, except for coaching. Somehow we'll have to work coaching into that.
Right. Well,
what are the 5 ways that we learn? Jared, I'd love to hear this
the
from
five simplest ways, right? We learn by reading something. We learn by listening, audio, right? Listening to a coach talking about what to do. We visually learn, looking, right? Seeing somebody do it, execute it properly, even learn from looking at mistakes. We learn by doing it, then going to practice it. But we also learn a lot from teaching it. Once we then try to teach somebody how to do it, and we learn quite a bit from that. So how do we do that? We should have a camp.
Camp would be great.
We have a camp,
You teach me,
bring
I teach
athletes
you.
in, and then we have them, after we instruct them, we have them teach each other, review each other.
Put that on the docket. Let's get our assistants to schedule that camp. We'll get our listeners from around the world. Everybody met in New Zealand can come over to Santa Monica and or Santa Barbara, stay with you, and hit
with
the
me,
swim camp. So coaching.tower26.com. We're going to end at that, Jared. What are we going to talk about next episode?
Well, we'll need to go into a little more detail in this workout, but by the time we get to the next episode, we would be into propulsion, right?
Yep.
So we'll touch on the beginning steps of propulsion, and then it's also the new year. So we'll talk about the phases of Tower 26, what we go through beginning in the new year.
That's right. Well, we're looking forward to it, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays,
Merry Christmas,
Happy New
buddy.
Year. I won't see it. Well, we won't be on air until after the New Year, but we're looking forward to a big 2025. So it should be a fun next couple weeks.
And you know what? I like this new format.
I love it.
We did this once before, but I like this.
Now-
I'm glad to do this with you again. We got out of habit, and we were doing it old school on Zoom. And
this is
I'm
great.
glad we're back to what we were.
This is great. You made the trek down here from Santa Barbara, and it's worthwhile. So let's keep having fun with this live format. But it'll also be available on the podcast version on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and wherever else you might listen to your podcast. So you can listen to it there. Come back and look at the Tower 26 YouTube channel to see the video examples. So thanks for listening, guys. Have a happy holidays, happy New Year. For Jared Rodriguez, Jim Bitsky, the Tower 26 B Race Radio Podcast. See you guys.